Councilor Gwaltney,
Here.
Councilor Wolverton, Councilor Jones,
Here.
Councilor Nelms, here, and Councilor Harden.
Here.
Okay, so you got one out, Wolverton, but you got a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Salter. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to dispense the reading and approve the minutes from the Public Safety Committee meeting August 21st.
So moved.
Second.
So, Counselor, everybody should have received those. Good, okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 4-0.
Was it Jones Harden? I'm sorry.
Jones Harden.
Okay, gotcha.
Under old business 070323, request for consideration of adjustments to the criteria for approval of events affecting normal street flow and access. So primarily related to races. I'd like to put a bow on this in the next 2 weeks. In a nutshell, what we have talked about doing and agreed upon loosely as a committee, I just want to confirm tonight that we're good with it, so I can circulate it to police and to Melody, Ms. Salter, and make sure that everybody in the city is on board. Essentially, we'll move to an increased fee of about $500 to account for the time. It's currently, I'm not sorry, is it $250? It's either $250 or $500. We can discuss that. The second part would be to put out signage a couple of days prior to the race and remove said signage to allow for people in the neighborhood. And someone actually did that for the race this weekend. I was pretty impressed. I drove around and noticed that there were directional signs, but it at least gave people the indication of where there was a race coming, so that I warned my wife not to travel on certain streets that morning before she left early. So I think that's helpful. And the third criteria was related to police, just to ensure they have, I guess, cost-effective adjustment or cost increases for the time. So the chief said that they were handling any kind of inflationary costs, like they would raise their rate if they needed to. I don't want them to be pegged to a rate that was 5 years ago for the officers that are working those events, because there are a lot of officers at these events. I don't think I had anything else that was to be included in this. Is there anything else the committee would like to include?
So the 250 or 500 obviously doesn't include the officers. It's more for what the city has to go through to deal with it.
I think you should just do 250. I think 500 is onerous.
Yeah, 500 is a little high.
I bring that
You like
up.
500? I think it's too high.
Too much.
It's too much of a jump too.
What are we at, 100?
I'm not
No, we're at
50
50.
bucks.
Do what you want.
Or 50.
So
These
I
are
say
usually
250.
charitable
Yeah.
events.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
So I agree with you, and I attend a lot of these events. My only concern would be to ensure that we're accounting for the city's time in coordinating, lining out officers, because police does have to spend time to find officers. I'm sure to find 15 or 20 officers, it takes a minute. If Melody's having to handle a piece of it, or Brian's having to put something on the city website, I just want to make sure we're accounting for time. It may not be $500, it may be $250, but you know, a cost adjustment is necessary. $50 is certainly not accounting for an hour worth of labor inside the city. So
I mean,
that would be my thought.
it used to be like 10 when we first
Yeah.
got on the council. It was like 10.
I wanted to go to 200 last time.
I think 250. I'm not on the committee, but I think 250
Yeah.
is.
I'll make a motion that we raise it to 250.
We're not doing that today.
You gonna carry it over?
We're just lining out the criteria. So
Oh,
you're a fan of
I'm sorry.
250. The president is a fan of 500. Anybody else in the committee have thoughts?
So you're looking at 250 and 500, is that what he says?
We're
We're
just
just
debating
talking
on what
about
it
pricing.
should be. So, because I want to put together a one-sheeter loosely with details.
But you're planning on carrying this item over
I
tonight?
am.
So we can scratch it. We're cutting to the
Yeah,
chase.
it's not going out tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah.
Okay.
Too much going on to
You
have that
think?
one in red.
You think?
So.
Yee.
Are there any other criteria that y'all would like to add?
I mean, I think it would be helpful if we had, maybe on the website, maybe we do, is if you want to do this, here's the steps
I'm gonna go.
that you have to do.
Yeah, ideally, I would like for Brian to take some of the burden off city staff to inbound any request for a raise via the job forms, so that it's trackable.
Right, right.
And because we had talked about, for folks that don't comply, that maybe there's a penalty that goes into their next race if they don't put up their signs or pick them up like they're supposed to, so that we can have at least some detail. Because right now, we can't look back and see when any race was held besides just memory.
I think that's better than striking 500. There's a way to, the next time they come around, to say, you didn't do it right the first time.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you know, I know that takes a little bit of burden for feedback on staff too, so I'm trying to be sensitive to putting any additional work on people if possible, but that should be pretty minute. It's all on Brian. Okay, so we'll add, go ahead.
Councilor Gwaltney, I was just gonna add too, like, it's not really an additional variable for the framework as much as it is just a consideration that, you know, thinking about the fee, that an appropriate amount, you know, to, you know, surrounding cities. I know we want to, you know, account for the time that goes into it, but there's also a benefit to surrounding businesses when these events do occur. So just wanna make sure that's part of the consideration as well, to where we don't have a fee that causes us to lose an event and then we lose those reciprocal benefits to
Yeah.
surrounding businesses. So, but I think it's a great idea, and supportive of the concept overall as far as, you know, helping residents know when something's gonna happen and detouring. So thank you for your work on this.
Yeah, good input. I don't think 250, I don't think 500 would discourage anybody from coming, but since the consensus is 250, we'll go with 250. And if we see where city staff feels like it needs to be higher, we'll revisit this issue later on. So basically, roughly 3 items. Are there any other things the committee or counselors or anybody else in the room would like to?
Have you talked to Sergeant King?
I've not talked to Sergeant King.
He would be a good person to talk to. I mean, that's who you have to go through HPD with. That's who I
Talked
send
to
everybody
the
to.
chief about it.
Yeah,
He might have
that's true.
collected his data.
Yeah, but Sergeant King's the one that is
Okay,
who
I'll
is
reach out.
dealing with directly with the racists.
Okay. All right, well, there's no other input.
I just have a question, being on St. Charles, which is often on the route.
Yes, it is.
If we ever consider maybe drawing out a few more routes around town to share the love, or does that just make it too complicated?
I think it's they certify races, so, and that's a cost involved to have a race course certified.
Okay.
And so that's how.
That's why it happens.
All of them?
Most
all
of them,
5 days?
yeah. A lot of them, yeah. I mean, you know, if,
Is that certified, so if you wanna race Boston or New York?
I mean, it's a 5K, but, you know, the age group awards, age group state awards, I mean, you could have a state, you could break the record for
Sort of qualified.
a 55-year-old woman at the We Love Homewood Day 5K. You know, anyways.
So you have to have a certified route.
You don't have to, but
That
most
helps.
every race gets the race course certified. And so that's why you pick, I mean, there's usually a handful of races, and they usually start, you know, down there, up here, up there, you know, the end. I mean, you know, track check's usually involved, they're usually finishing in front of the store, so, I don't know, that's what it is.
Manhattan.
That's why it's always like,
Yeah.
which course is it? Oh, it's the 5K, it's the Retro Run course, it's the We Love Homewood Day course, it's that course, you know.
Okay, just a thought.
Okay, with no other input from everybody, we'll carry over 070323. New business 140823, request for consideration of traffic signage at the intersection of Lucerne and Parkway Drive. Councilor Sims.
Yes, so this is a request that initially came in through the portal. Just wanted to kind of overview the current situation with the committee, so that then possibly everyone can look at it for themselves and give thought to what may be appropriate. Is the pointer available? Bo, do you have that? Okay. So, if you look this area up on Google Maps, you may find that Google Maps actually shows it as a one-way, but it is not a one-way. This is actually two-way traffic flag.
On both.
I'm not having much luck with this, Brian. Do I just push the button? Oh, there-
Yeah,
Okay.
it's got it.
Can I try that? Thank you. So this is down here is Lakeshore, okay?
Right.
And here's Parkway coming up, and then you have Lucerne coming through here. And so basically, at no point in any of these transitions is there any signage. So again, it's two-way traffic. So if you come down this way, you will just continue on without any signage. You may have someone coming this way as well. So obviously, if you're well versed with the area, you may know to look and yield. But the resident, or at least a resident in this area, watches near misses all the time. So in addition to consideration of what signage may be appropriate, whether it be some stop signs, yield signs, or one-way traffic flow, I think probably, you know, the committee members to look at it and to also consider, maybe we can ask from police if there's any crash history there. And kind of just look at the situation overall to see how to make it safer, because there's been, you know, residents comment that it's a problematic situation. You know, one idea could be to, since this is all, you know, right away, you could look at possibly putting like a yield sign here, one here, and you could either do one here or here. If you kept it obviously here on this side, you would make this traffic flow yield. This kind of makes more sense to make this yield flow, but again, if you have any issues where you're also trying to just slow down the straightaway, you could give consideration to putting the yield sign there. But overall, I think you could look at putting signage in 3 places, either yield signs, stop signs, or you could, you know, look at a one-way. So that's basically the item for consideration and follow-up to a resident concern. I've looked at it, I see where there can be confusion about stopping, and so just wanted to present it to the committee. Everyone look at it, and we can talk about it more after we get some data from police, and y'all have had a chance to look at it directly.
And Lucerne's 2 ways on both the sides of the triangle, correct?
That's right, this is 2-way
Oh, I can
directions,
see.
this is 2-way, and
If I'm
this is
coming
2-way.
up and I wanna go to the left and someone's coming down. Yeah, I can see.
So in theory, anyone who's here should make an informed decision and stop and look, you know, left and right before proceeding left, but there's no signage to that effect. Sorry, Councilor Jones.
Councilor Jones?
Yeah, I'm under the theme of simplicity. It seems like to me that we simply need a yield sign here and
Yeah,
there.
that was my next question, is recommendations.
I mean, and that takes care of it, in my opinion.
Well,
Drive
well,
it, I'll drive
then
it
how
all.
about
But what about up on the top right there where the
Well,
green
if
is?
you're coming down,
No, if I'm coming and I wanna go to the right, to the left, and someone's coming on, what I'll call Parkway that way, or Lucerne that way.
This is Lucerne, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the other thing too. If you live there, you know how to navigate it, you know what to look for.
Yeah, and I'll say, I think the yield sign is the appropriate measure here, because we don't wanna go putting in stop signs, because the next request will be, everybody's running the stop signs, and we'll have, you know, we'll have speed bump requests, and then we'll have police sitting out there handing out tickets to neighbors, and they're pissed, they want everything taken out. So let's just be reasonable, and, I think stop signs, I'm sorry, yield signs. Easy there.
And I will say this, in
Coffee stand
consideration
too.
of this request, in addition to the resident expressing the concern, is because of this being, you know, from Salter to Lakeshore, it is used somewhat frequently by high school drivers who may be less experienced. So having clear signage, how to navigate the triangle would be a benefit from that consideration as well.
So Councilor Jones, were you making a recommendation?
well, no, I was just giving my opinion. I mean, we do need, I guess, recommendation from
Yeah, has
Randy,
Randy,
I guess.
has Randy said anything?
Has Randy looked at this yet?
We did, I did originally, I sent this to Randy, and Kale, and I guess there was, Amy looked into it to make sure there was no past ordinances related to this triangle, and there was not, or I may be confusing things, but I don't know that Randy has a recommendation at this point. So we could ask him for a recommendation.
I mean, I think if we're gonna put traffic signs up, we need a recommendation
Yeah,
from
I'd
somebody
like-
who's an actual
I'd like
traffic
a
person.
recommendation.
Okay.
Instead of us just making random assumptions on our own.
We know.
No,
Yeah, cause that was sitting there thinking the same thing, I'm like,
Yeah.
where do we put them?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
really my wheelhouse.
Like, yeah, that's not my skill
Alright,
set.
so-
I'm on the
wait,
committee.
No, I was just gonna say, absolutely, I agree that
Yeah.
Randy should be, and that's why I wanted to present the item. There's kind of, I wanna kind of present what scenarios could be, but then to carry it over, not to proceed without like having HPD, or the police and Randy weigh in on additional data and expertise.
Okay, I will email Randy to meet with him, to discuss this, if there's no objections, unless anybody else has feedback, Ward 4? 'Cause this is Ward 4, correct?
It is, it's Ward 4 and 3.
Oh, both? Okay.
Yeah, it kinda
Just wanna
captures
make
it.
sure we didn't
Although
leave
I
out-
think this, I guess one side is 3 and one side is 4, yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's at least bordering it.
Yeah, it's weird.
We don't want a yield sign in 3.
I just wanted to make sure everybody
All
had-
anti-yield signs?
I think.
wanna make sure everybody had the opportunity to provide feedback.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice? All right, we will carry over 140823, and with that, public safety is adjourned.